Richard, welcome to Work Life. So glad you could join us today.
Thank you. I appreciate it, man. I really appreciate you having me on. I'm excited.
Hey, hopefully the music got your blood pumping and you're ready to have a good conversation. I had the privilege of being on your podcast a couple of weeks ago, and I really enjoyed that. And it's so great to have you on this show because I think you've got a really interesting backstory that's going to be fun for our audience to hear. So as just a way of kind of starting out the conversation, give us just kind of a summary of how you sort of started and how you got to where you are today in terms of your career life.
Okay. Yeah. I'll go back a little bit. So about 30 years.
Please do.
Yeah. Back about 30 years in business. Coming out of the Marine Corps, I got out of the Marine Corps and of course, get a job, you got to work. And I decided that, working for someone was not going to be my gig. So I started my own business. I started in the landscape industry. I niched that into the water feature industry, which is backyard water gardens. That grew for almost 20 years. I had a great time with that. And then the crash of 08, 09 hit.
Yeah.
And my business kind of evaporated overnight, and I kind of didn't understand why. It just was over. I figured it's the economy, it's this and this and this. And so I had to restart. A wife, 6 small children at the time, 6 kids under 4. And it was a little troubling. I kind of lost everything at that point. So I had to rebuild. So we moved, we rebuilt, started to do other businesses. I started to look back at what actually happened with my business. That was the big thing. So I had to figure out why, after 20 years of being the best at what I did, being on top of my game, speaking on it, traveling, building, doing amazing things. And then it just all would disappear. And I'm like, there had to be something. There had to be some clues there, right? So that's what I started to do. I started to look back at those clues and figure out all these little mistakes that I had made that added up to the big one of it disappearing. So from there, I created other businesses from there, which brings me up to today. Got those going, started to apply those principles I learned from my mistakes, and then decided, well, what I really love doing is helping other people not make those mistakes. Like I have 6 kids. We homeschool them. I teach them. And I want to teach them not to make the dumb mistakes I did. So I figured, well, I can help other people too. So I kind of created what I call the ETOP Academy, which is Escape the Owner Prison. That's the name of my best-selling book. So I created the ETOP Academy, and now I'm able to help other business owners achieve really compressed time, and forego those big costly mistakes, even some little ones in there so that their business can scale properly, and they can still have freedom in their life. Because the big thing with me, Eric, was being trapped by my business. Literally, like if I didn't open the door every day, nothing happened.
Yes.
If I didn't build the stuff, if I wasn't there, if I wasn't making the sales, nothing happened. And that was the big epiphany or one of the epiphanies, that if a business needs me to do everything, I don't think I have a business. So that's kind of what taught me to change my way of thinking.
It's so interesting because I know you and I both hear these stories all the time. I mean, entrepreneurs are great people, small business owners, great people. It's so much fun to have an idea, to build it, to take it into the marketplace and to see success. But, one of the things that you mentioned right up front is that you made some mistakes and there were some roadblocks along the way, but those are really the key learning experiences, right? People always think you learn from when you're successful, but it's actually, you learn more from your failures than you do from your successes.
Yeah. Failures they're part of business. I always tell people, if you haven't failed, if you tell me you're in business for however long and you haven't had any failures or even mistakes, well, either you haven't been in business more than a day or two, or you're a liar. That's what
That's so true.
So, you're not being honest with yourself, but it is just that, Eric. You learn from these failures and these mistakes, and failure isn't defeat. Defeat is quitting. That's defeat. Like you could lose your business. Okay. That's a failure. All right. For whatever okay. But doesn't mean you never do another business. I started others. I did multiples, so you just get back on and you do it. But I learned so much. Like I wouldn't go back and change things because I couldn't be who I am today. And I couldn't help others the way I can help them because I can see things that you others can't because I've been through it.
Well, that's so interesting. And actually just, made me think of the next question that I wanted to ask, which is really, you do sometimes have to experience some of these failures, some of these traumas along the way in order to get you where you are. And a common question that people always get asked, right, is if you could go back in time knowing what you know today, how would you do things different? And the reality is all of those little things along the way sort of got you to where you are. It would be hard to sort of leapfrog some of those issues. Don't you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. You can't, and I do look back, and people, they talk about regret. They try, would you change? I'm like, I don't think I could change anything or want to, because I wouldn't be who I am today.
Yeah.
I can still change things now. I got to look forward and make changes. If I want to change things, I have to do it from today going forward. You can't do anything with the past, but the things I want to improve in my life, like I've done, I have to be intentional on that and start doing it. I don't live in the past. It's an interesting thing, Eric. My daughter the other day, she goes, Dad, what's really strange? Like with you, like you've created like world-class things. You've done all these amazing, because you kind of going through all the stuff I've done. She's like no one knows.
Yeah.
Like no one knows. I go, because it's about tomorrow. It's not about yesterday. She's like, I just can't believe these famous people, like people know of them, but you know them. And then you've been with this person. I go, I get, that's it. But I'm looking to tomorrow. I want to be better tomorrow. I don't live in that past kind of world.
Yes.
I do an achievement, and then what's next?
Well, what's so interesting about that comment to me is I just recently watched that HBO sort of documentary called Fake Famous, which is really interesting if you hadn't had a chance to see it. It's all about this influencer culture and about how so many people today desire to be famous when really they haven't done anything to be famous. They just want to skip over everything to be famous. And I think one of the things that you're really talking about in your book and in your coaching and when you help people is that it's all about the journey. It's not the destination, right? It's the journey is where all of the excitement is, all the fun is as a business owner. And yeah, you want to do the kinds of things that ultimately make you successful, but there really is no end point. It's the journey.
Right. Exactly. I think the best thing I ever heard was when talking about that influencer culture and all that stuff, they want to be discovered. They don't want to be developed.
Oh yeah. That's great. I like that.
It really, because that's what the journey is. It's development. It's self-discovery. It's development of, you got to go through it. I mean, you want to get fit. Guess what? You got to put time in the gym, right? You got to work out. You got to train hard. You don't get to the Olympics by wishing.
Yes.
You got to put in the time and the training and everything else. So yeah, it's very important that people understand that.
So how do you think you are a better owner today than you were when you first started out? How have you sort of balanced your life a little bit more in terms of your career life than maybe when you started?
Well, I think the big thing I learned was about delegation. That was number one, right? Like I had to trust others that they can do the work as well or better than I can. And then the next step from there was, I actually want to hire people who can do the work better than me. Can they start out better than me? So I'd really prefer the best of the best working for me now, instead of having people who are good but not as good as me.
Yes.
So I learned to shelf the ego, which can be a real challenge for a lot of entrepreneurs. Because you're making the changes, you're making the business. I made this and I made that and I made this stuff work and I put in 16 hours a day, and you get into all that and that's all good and you can puff your chest and pat yourself on the back, but where's that take you? I'll tell you where it took me for 20 years, was obsessed with my business and not my family, and no balance in my life, working every day, got incredibly unhealthy because 3 meals from a window every day because I was too busy doing everything. Yeah. And it almost destroyed my complete life. It really did almost, it was, again, that 0809 crash, best thing that ever happened to me,
And I'm sure you see that in other people that you coach and do business with, is you see them putting in all this time and effort trying to build their business, make it successful, but they're not doing it in a way that allows them to be an owner, not an operator, right? They're doing all the work.
Right. Yeah. It can be a fine line sometimes, especially in the beginning. You have to understand that there's obviously a lot of work involved to get a thing off the ground, but you have to be able to. I was talking with a client the other day. She goes, well, how do I understand? How do I go about this? And where I go, well, you have to go out 18 months from now and say, where do you want to be? And then reverse engineer. So what's that going to take to get me to this point? If I need to have X amount of employees, this many accounts, but I still want to have this much time on my personal life. Well, then you have to just kind of work backwards, and you have to do them in increments. You don't go out 10 years and figure this out. You got to do it in smaller chunks. then start to understand that. And it's hard for guys because again, they've got what I call the death grip on their business. If it's not me, it's not going to be as good. And what I tell people, okay, if you can get someone, a foreman, say, let's talk construction, like you're a great craftsman, everything else, and you can get a guy who's 90% as good as you or 95% as good as you, I 100% guarantee you the customers will not know the difference.
Right.
Okay. You're going to get paid, but now you're not going to have to do the work. Right. Yes. And you'll realize there's freedom in that. And now you can grow your business instead of having to be on the site swinging a hammer or whatever the case, and it's like, because I learned that, one day I finally but you guys, you got to do this waterfall here. I painted it on the ground with spray paint, said, point the waterfall towards the door here. You've been with me for 8 years. I think you can handle this. I left, I came back, walked in the back. The homeowner walked outside. It's amazing. The most beautiful thing I've ever seen. I'm like, I'm free. Yes. I'm free. I'm like, they don't need me. It was the greatest thing ever. Great day. From that point on, I had 20 minutes in the morning with the guys who were looking for. If you need me, give me a holler. And they would just knock the stuff out. So it was great. So you got to learn that lesson.
I love that. There's a lot of satisfaction in growing and developing a team so that you get a group of people who do understand the way you think, do understand your values, do understand, what your expectations are in a business, and then just letting them do that. And I love the fact that you said, no, it doesn't have to be 100% the way you did it. But, even in that 10%, 5%, whatever it may be, there may be good ideas that you didn't even think about, and you have to allow yourself to be open to people contributing as well, correct?
Yeah, that's such a strong point, Eric. I mean, you want that, right? You need to encourage that in your team. Guys, I need input. Yeah. What's going on in the field? I can't be a general in the war room and not get feedback from the troops. I can't get my front line. I have to have communication, right? You got to know what's happening. So if you're not able to open your door, leave it open, and because these people will build your business like you never could.
Yeah.
You're empowering them to give them, you've got some expertise, you can get them training, right? You start giving these people, hey, I want you to go to this training. It's going to make you better, and then what do you get on the flip side of that? Oh, what if they leave and never, they're going to go do their own, what if, or as Henry Ford said, what if they stay?
Right.
Okay? They don't get the training. What if they stay? Right. Then you got a bunch of people who don't know anything. Right. So if I can train someone well enough that they're so good and they've got that entrepreneurial bug and they want to go out and do it themselves, I've done a great thing. I am contributing to society because hopefully they're going to do a magnificent business. They'll follow my example, right? And I like healthy competition.
For sure.
There's nothing wrong with it. So if that's the case, but you can't live in that kind of fear.
No.
Because you limit yourself, you limit your business. But people they're brilliant. And if you let them be brilliant, they will bring incredible things to your business. It's just the only way to go.
I agree 100% with that. And, as we kind of segue into our sort of second stage in the show, if you will, on the personal side of things, it sounds like there were some rough moments in there where when you were focused so heavily on your business, you didn't have time for your family, you found yourself in some unhealthy situations. How have you sort of managed to come back from that? And what do you focus on now in your personal life that has really, made it more fulfilling than it was during those dark times?
Well, like I said, one of my biggest epiphany was, and this is what changed everything for me, helped me recreate it, was, understanding that, the business was over, that first business, what am I going to do? But I woke up one morning going, you know what? I have 6 small children who love me. Like they literally cry when I leave and they attack me when I come home. One day I had my son running down the driveway crying after me as I drove away in my truck because I'm leaving. So I'm like, so I woke up, I go, you know what? My kids don't care what I drive. They don't care how many trucks I have. They don't care where we live. All they wanted was me. I said, so all this business stuff is for what? I'm like, all this is my ego. It's awards, it's publications, it's, accolades. I'm like, oh, none of that matters. And I was able that day to walk in and shut the business down. I mean, it was that day. It was 2 hours later. I'm like, guess what? We're done. We're closing up here in a week. We're not going to be able to continue. My guys I had for 10 years with me. I had to tell them, we're done, guys. Sorry. So
this was really a hard stop.
It was hardcore. The more you get to know me, I'm a very all or nothing kind of guy. I'm a little intense. I have video of me burning the uniforms.
Oh,
geez. I am never doing this again. I got the bottom of that. I am done. When I walk, I'm done. Okay. Yeah. I'm a world-class sculptor. Guess what? Sold every piece of equipment. Haven't welded since. Okay. Maybe that's not the best way to go, But as I told my daughter in the same conversation I first mentioned, I said, that intensity enabled me to do what I did. The same intensity that I'm able to quit. See, I wasn't able to, I can't really separate the two very well. So I'm a very all or nothing. So which brings me to your question. All right. So now what I've done is I had to learn, like, I have to put hard rules in place for growing a business and raising my family, enjoying myself, spending time with them that matters as they grow up. Now they're all just reaching their teen years now. And it's really great. But those kind of things, like you said, I didn't have hobbies, Eric. Okay. As I tell my kids, I have a little saying, I go, Daddy, don't play games. Okay. Because I'm a business guy. I work. Okay. That's what I do. So it's, so I've had to let my children teach me how to have some fun, and my wife she's really good. She's not me, thankfully.
Yeah.
Okay? She balances us out. So one of the balances is my wife.
I love that.
Okay, honestly. So she brings the sanity back to the conversation and the existence and everything else. So without her, I don't know, but she's done a lot of stuff for me. So now, do I have a hobby? Yeah, a couple little hobbies. I'm still not super hobby guy, but I enjoy myself and I spend my time with my kids. I trained my son. We went to Junior Olympics in 2019. I trained him in running. He's an 800-mile guy. So we do a lot of fitness training because I've got a lot of experience in that. So, I work with the homeschool cross country teams and things like that. So I do a lot of extracurricular stuff like that. And again, I try to, my hobby is really kind of breathing life into others, right? Helping them, mentoring, doing things like that. That's really what I've learned gives me a lot of fulfillment.
But it sounds like you've made, when you had that hard stop and you burned the uniforms and you said, we're going to do this different. It sounds like what you then did is very methodically sort of change direction. And, you obviously had to start working again at some point, right? You got to have that income coming in.
Right.
But it sounded like you were very intentional then with your plan as to how you balance out that career life and that family life to, give time to your kids and your wife and the limited hobbies that you had.
Yeah, you did, because it's such an attraction business, right? The entrepreneurial journey is a giant, it's just a giant magnet, right? That can suck you in, right? And I have to constantly get my own mental stops. I have to, okay, well, you work 12 hours today, you can stop now, because I love to work. So I had to start putting in those breaks. I started working at home, okay, because at home, you don't get to put in that kind of time.
Sure.
And I know some people can do that home working thing, but for me, it's the only thing that gave me balance, because I could get interrupted. As much as that could be obnoxious. I mean, if there was a hard thing, like I'm doing a podcast, I don't have the kids running in and talking to me, but that really balanced me out. So I had to get away from the away from home office and start working at home. So that's why I wanted to start also developing business online. So I had the freedom to be, that's what my coaching program became. So it gave me the ability to set my schedule even better and have more freedom of movement, so to speak.
I love that too. And you wrote the book. Was that kind of a cathartic experience to be able to get out some of what you've gone through in the past on pages as a way of helping others? Because I certainly, on this show and others, one of the things that comes through so clearly over and over again is that when you start to add value to other people's lives, it can make such a profound difference in your own life.
Yeah, it's very, very joyful. It's my greatest joy, helping others with their business and stuff, right? So writing the book was like, I've got all this. I know and I've been kind of a writer, I write little blogs, do something. I'm like, I'll write a book. So I figured out an outline and I knocked out a book. I just stood at my kitchen counter. Again, I have a little bit of a work ethic. So I just spent 12 hours a day for 3 weeks and I wrote a book. They got an editor and they did the stuff. And I got bestseller and that was all great. But like, it was so important to have that, to actually put it in paper, the scaling process and everything else, not just for clients or people help other people, but for myself.
Yeah.
It was really a great exercise, and now I'm working on a second book. So now we're working on the next one. I got that I'm like, well, I can do this. So it was a big deal. It really was.
Well, as you've gone through this process, found your kind of work-life balance, gotten things where, sort of you want them to be, and now you're out there helping others through your coaching program. Obviously, a lot of people aren't in a position to do what you did, right? Hard stop, all or nothing, burn the boats. A lot of people have to take a more gradual approach to change, to getting that balance in order. So how do you coach people in that way? Because I know that we can all be procrastinators. Sometimes if you take things, gradually, you can continue putting things off. What's the sort of slap in the face that people need sometimes to make those kind of changes?
Well, I think you've got to set a course, right? You're going to take a road trip. Well, you don't just get in and start driving. You usually have a destination, right? So first you need to know where to go. It's kind of like with that other client I said, 18 months out and you work your way backwards. So you kind of do an outline for them of what it's going to take to get to where I want to go. Mm-hmm. If I'm working a 9 to 5, I want to start my own business. Well, what does that look like? What's the first step? I have a thing in my academy called concept to creation. Right. So we take you through the whole process of creating it. Here's the idea. Here's what I want to do. And then what's it actually take to become that entrepreneur, right? How do you launch a product or a service or whatever it is? So you start to do pieces. You got to start putting things in place, right? So you got to take the small chunks and you got to work with those. And the procrastination is the big deal, right? Just like you're saying, as I tell people, procrastination leads to poverty. Okay. So proactivity, you're talking prosperity. Okay. So you want to start hitting these things, but make a plan. If it's got to be in steps, because I don't recommend doing what I did. Okay. It's very difficult on relationship and everything else. The way I'm an odd individual who does things not like most people. So I don't recommend just throw everything away, and it can be a challenge. Okay. So you gotta.
But that's sometimes what you need to do, right?
It worked for me. It worked for me.
The cold turkey approach.
Yeah. Again, maybe it works for you. Some people need that shove out of the nest, so to speak. Because you can be comfortable. Here's the thing: when you're comfortable in a position, whether it's a corporate job or whatever, comfort is comfort, right? And comfort puts us to sleep, and comfort kills. Okay, you have to remember that. So you got to remember, you got to push yourself. You got to start stepping out there. You got to put in some extra hours. We got a lot of hours in the week. You're not working all of them. You got time to spend. If it's 1 or 2 hours a day you dedicate moving your new business forward, then that's what you do. And you have to be consistent in that and start to put that in place.
That comfort, that need for security, I think people often underestimate how much of a factor that is in their decision making and their behaviors. It really drives a lot of us. It's hard to break out of that.
It is, and I try to explain to people, and some people get it, some people don't, but there is no security. Okay, they can fire you tomorrow from that job.
Absolutely.
They can have, if you've been around any amount of time, you've seen whole companies go under, right? With economies and things, so you could be done tomorrow. So you want to prevent being done tomorrow, you got to run your own deal, right? When you're in charge, okay, when the destiny's up to you, there's no getting cut, right? If you do it correctly and you build yourself and make yourself bulletproof, recession proof, everything else, you have way more security, so it's what's the word? It's like a falsehood. I'm missing the word, but to believe that security is there with a job, it's not real. You're kidding yourself.
Yeah. So when you look to the future, what mountains are left to climb, whether it's sort of in your business life or your personal life, are there some big goals out there, some big challenges that are still on the horizon for you?
Yeah, with ETOP Academy, our big mission is helping 10,000 business owners escape the owner prison.
Oh, I like that.
And people are like, okay, well, how do you, what's the metric? I said, well, they have to go through my academy. They graduate. So I have to have 10,000 graduates, 10,000 escapees, if you will. And that's my big goal. Over the next 10 years, that's my goal. So that's my big one. And there's so much to that's like a really easy way to say it, but there's a whole, so I'm going to build a massive company. I'm in the process of building a massive company and still maintain the philosophy of the book, of the whole thing. Right. So I've got that. So I'm going to prove I can do it, so I've done it with my other stuff, but now I'm going to go on a grander scale and just show that it can still be done even. Okay. This was at 10 or 15 million. Great. What does it look like at 100 million? What does it look like at 150 million? What does that look like? Can you maintain it? Can it still work? And so it's part of the proof, kind of the proof in the pudding kind of thing. So that's my big one. And family wise, I've got, next month I'll have 6 teenagers in the house.
Oh,
Okay. So we're in that, and they're awesome kids. And so I
is
got
that what happened to the hair?
Yeah. No, this happened before. I got ready. I was prepared. I know
You were prepared.
I'm just going to do this. I'm going to cut it off now. See, I'm very all or nothing. I don't want a little bit of hair. I want no hair or all.
I got it.
So, but I want to pour myself into my children these last few years. Okay, as they reach an adulthood, so I've got to be able to balance that out. That's a big thing. I want to set their path. I want to help them in any way I can discover who they are. That's what we've been doing this whole time, and help them on their journey themselves and prepare them for it. So that's on the personal side. That's my big mission.
I love it, Richard. So much of what you're talking about is exactly why I started this show. It's really about finding that balance between your professional life and your personal life. And you certainly have gone as far as, to write a book about it, to really talk about how people can be better business owners, be more involved in their personal lives. And I love that. And that's why it's been so great to have you on on this show. I'd love for you, as we sort of wrap things up here, just to share with the audience again, where they can find you online, where they can find the book. Please.
Okay.
Share.
Yeah, absolutely. EscapeTheOwnerPrison.com. Easy enough. You can go to that website and get pretty much everything there. My ETOP podcast you can find also, and Facebook, social media, you can find Richard Walsh on there with all of that. I've got great free ebooks and free books, and you get my book on Amazon. You can go on there, look up Escape the Owner Prison. You'll find that on there too. You got the Kindle version and the paperback. And if you get on my mail list, you get the audio version too, because I'm just that generous. So,
I think COVID has changed a lot of behaviors, but I, for one, have certainly been diving into a lot more audiobooks because I get so tired of sitting around. At least you could be mobile, and it's great. So I think that's a great offer. I will definitely make sure that we have all that linked up in the show notes so that people can find you and take advantage of that. But this has been a great conversation. I've really enjoyed connecting with you again and hearing a little bit more detail on your backstory. So this has been great.
Oh, Eric, thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity to just spend a little time with you. You're a great guest on my podcast. I loved every minute of it. So I love sharing the story, man, and helping others.
Hey, and it's a great story. So great. Thank you. I appreciate it. And enjoy the rest of your afternoon.